Welcome to Straight from the Muzzle, folks, where we are anything but straight. My name is Space.
And I'm Sparrow.
And we welcome to our episode, which is about what today?
Today is a really cool episode that is all about Lackadaisy. And we actually have two guests speaking with us today. Would you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
No.
No. Oh, fine. Episode over.
It's totally fine. Tracy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first, and then we'll introduce Fable after you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Tracy Butler. I am the creator of the print and webcomic Lackadaisy. I've been doing that for too long now. I think it's 15 or 14 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm internet old. And just over the past 3 years, I've been working on a animated pilot for it that was Kickstartered. And yeah, we've just released it and it's up on YouTube, and we're excited about it and have lots of plans for the future. And that's about it. That's my deal. It's
well, dang, that goes all the questions we were asking.
Yeah, okay, can I go?
Quickest episode ever.
I'll just step out.
And Fable.
Hello, my name is Fable Siegel. I am former DeviantArt Wolfaboo legend. I currently live on Isle Nublar, and I herd cats for a living.
I'm sorry, did you say you herd cats for a living?
Yeah,
yes.
Cat herder.
Yeah,
not herd,
absolutely.
but herd. But also,
is that an actual thing?
I also herd cats for a living.
We throw Rocky down several hills.
Oh, the beautiful, just deliciousness of smashing that boy's face to the ground over and over and over again.
He's not a real cat, just to be clear. He's
yes, the more you think of him as just like a guy and less like a cat, the easier it is to do this.
I just want to let you know that I did actually Google it.
Apologies to your listeners for what will be bird noises in the background. I'm surrounded by dinosaurs, in fact, and they will not shut up. So you're going to have to deal with it. So sorry.
They can't stop. They won't stop.
They will not stop. I have no way of making them shut up outside of them not existing anymore. And you know what? That's just going to be a you problem, not a mine problem. So
we fully welcome it. So it's all good.
The true stamp of bird ownership. Your problem, not mine. All right, so can you guys just give a quick synopsis on what Lackadaisy is about so our audience has a base to go off of, just in case they haven't been familiar with it?
Ooh, fancy word.
It's about a gang of ne'er-do-wells who are trying to keep a small speakeasy in business and doing a fantastically bad job of it. It's set in 1927 in St. Louis. Of course, Prohibition was in full effect, so alcohol trafficking and production and sale of alcohol was by and large outlawed, but that of course did not stop people from indulging, and in fact probably increased the allure of,
people
going to...
People don't stop things because you made them illegal?
No.
What's the point of making things illegal then if it doesn't stop anything?
Yeah, it turns out prohibitions are not great. It certainly catalyzed a lot of organized crime. So that's the setting of this particular story. And of course, it features all felines who just happen to make for good gangsters, I felt. So yeah, it's kind of a plucky bunch of underdogs trying to survive in this environment in which they're surrounded by much bigger entities doing the same sort of business. And they're sort of just scraping by.
How many characters do you have in the film?
I haven't even counted. We have there's
one shot where we have 7 characters on screen.
Oh yeah, 7 of them at once.
3, and then there's the 4th one. So there's
Rocky, Ivy,
Freckle. It sounds like I don't know my own movie. Nicodeme, Seraphine, Mordecai. So that's 6. Mitzi, Wick, Zib, and Victor. That's 10.
Sarah John
and
JJ and the rest of the band.
Horatio. And Asa. So that's 13 speaking roles, not counting Tracy herself. Yeah.
That's a lot.
And a number of background characters and things like that who don't have speaking roles. But some of our Kickstarter backers supported us at such a degree that we had to put them in the film. So we did.
Like the guy on stage in the back of the speakeasy?
No, that's the band. But there are people in the lounge chairs and kind of like slung over the...
It's a combination of patrons and send-ups to people who worked on production and one elderly cat who sadly passed away during production.
Oh, yeah, that was my cat, Luca. Fable lost Nobu during production. I lost Luca, sadly.
Yeah, but it would have been harder to fit a chicken in there, so...
We should have just feline-ified Nobu at some point, I think.
It's fine. I'm in there. That's feline enough.
Yeah.
I don't want to overrepresent myself in the movie. It was already ridiculous how many credits I had. I actually had to cut out half of my credits. So it's like, this would just look like parody if I actually put everything that I did on this movie in the credits properly.
How old were you when you started brainstorming these characters?
24. Well, I
okay.
mean, it's kind of hard to say because they are actually, several of them came from more like my middle school years where I would just sit in class and draw all day in my school notes and on my, those like paper bag covers you have to make for your school books.
Yeah.
Out of like grocery store bags.
Did you ever,
like I would just cover those in drawings.
You ever take the bus home listening to music? You're like imagining a music video in my head with these.
Oh,
yes,
all the time.
I did that all the
Still
time.
do that. Still do that.
Yes, and these were the
Still do.
characters who featured in those things. They didn't really have any context except, that or, whatever stream of consciousness thing I was thinking of. If I saw a cool dress or something and I wanted to draw the character wearing the dress or whatever, I'd just scribble it on my book or in my notes. Or, I saw some other cartoon I really liked and wanted to dress them up like that. Or, force my characters to cosplay as other characters. And yeah, so they didn't really have any context, but I had those characters going back to probably age 12 or so and kind of just, moved on from there, left school to take a job in game development and did that for a long time and ended up in a art director role there where I was a little bit removed from the more hands-on stuff that I really enjoyed doing. So I started doing the comic at night as my own personal artistic fulfillment. And that's when those characters kind of reemerged as like, I got really interested in the local history here and started working on this concept. And then those characters from my childhood just kind of like popped back up and they're like, we're here. Here's where we fit in. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. But I didn't they were not ever before that, rum running, bootlegging, criminal cats. I mean, well, they were criminals because cats are just criminals. But
That's what I'm gonna say. Cats are pretty evil.
So you said your childhood. Did you grow up in St. Louis?
No, I actually grew up in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Fable actually is from New England originally as well.
Yeah, I'm from New Hampshire. I was the hat on top of her.
Mhm.
Nice.
Like,
Yeah, the little hat
The
Massachusetts
baker's hat.
we never knew
No.
each other back in our hometowns, though.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I had
Didn't
no
cross
idea.
paths until many years later. I moved away from home when I was pretty young still to take that job. I left school. I was studying biology, but didn't want to. I wanted to be in art, and that was a bit of an issue with my family. They were not really on board with that idea, but I got a job offer because I was putting my art online and just the right person saw it. And serendipitously, I got this offer to go work for a small game studio. And I was like, yeah, I'm taking that train.
Yeah.
So I did, and that landed me in St. Louis and been here ever since.
Which kind of leads us into our first question.
Mhm.
I was doing my research on you. I wanted to
Oh, a
Fine.
stalker.
Creeper.
Shh. It's not true.
Doxing Tracy Butler, for shame.
I don't have a restraining order yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Try harder.
I want to kind of know a little bit more about the research that you were doing in this project about the local history of St. Louis. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you were so driven to do that? It just seems like something that's so offbeat for someone to be like, I'm going to get into the local history. Because I can tell you right now, I don't give two craps about the local history of the city that I live
for a
in.
long time. I didn't. People who live here are not enthused about living here. Nobody's starry-eyed oh, I live in St. Louis. Oh my God. I mean, they like the Cardinals and things like that.
Oh, my stars.
And, the rest of the country considers it flyover country at this point. But I have this thing about stuff that has this sort of pathos in it kind of interwoven in it, where it's this city actually was the fourth biggest city in the country at the turn of the last century, so around 1900. And that's why it ended up having the World's Fair here. They actually yoinked the 1904 Olympics away from Chicago, finagled that out of Chicago's hands, and had them here as well that same year. It was a disaster, but and so yeah, it was this a lot of promise, this gateway to the west, this shining city on the river. Of course, Chicago won that fight and became the much bigger deal in the Midwest than St. Louis has ever been. But yeah, St. Louis was once a very prominent city. It was a major train hub back. I mean, for airplane history, it was played a major role in that for a long, long time. It was back when TWA still existed. It was the hub for that, and it used to be relevant. It used to be a very happening place, but it's really fell on hard times for many, many reasons. It's really a little hard to go into that. It's just so complex, but a lot of it had to do with the waning relevance of the river as, commerce and the train, and of course TWA went away, so it's just kind of been on a downhill slope a little bit for a lot of the last part of the 20th century and into this one. And that just really fascinated me because there's just a lot of relics and ruins and interesting things that happened, but this sort of sadness that, oh, well, this could have been something really grand, or, what happened here. I think that really fascinated me. But it's also got very, I mean, not to decry it at all, because it has very lovely corners still and lots of, wonderful things to go and do and visit. Like if you look for those things, you will find them. You can just kind of sit in your home and be like, yeah, this place sucks, which a lot of people do. But, you can go out and look for the little gems and things out there. And I don't know. I like and appreciate the challenge of finding what's good about a place and interesting about a place, even if other people kind of write it off.
My dad has this game that he taught me. Well, he taught our family this game a long time ago. He calls it Hidden Beauties. And when you're out and about, you're supposed to look for something that is hidden, that's a gem that no one else would see, and then you appreciate it. And I kind of feel like that's what you did here.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's some diamonds in the rough, and but yeah, I mean, it's got such a rich history and things. There's no lack of source material to pull from. It did have a lot of gangster history from that era. We of course always associate that kind of material with New York and Chicago, but every place had this kind of stuff going on in the 1920s. Every religious group, ethnic group, you can think of was involved in bootlegging alcohol and trafficking it and like opening speakeasies and just having their secret fun and also engaging in some violent crime. So it's just kind of, I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's just one of those smaller stories that no one ever told sort of a approach. Whereas like, I don't want to approach it like a big, Godfather-esque epic about Cosa Nostra or anything like that. I just want it to be the small time gangsters who no one ever heard
People ask you a lot of times, they're like, oh, are they going to be Al Capone? Or they like name some other famous gangster. It's like, no. Because they're not important enough. And that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're under the radar. And like the moment they become on the radar is when they're in the most
It's more
danger.
of an ode to the little guys who risked it all.
and
probably lost, but
definitely lost.
No one ever heard of them, and there's a reason, but that's okay.
I have come to your appreciation of St. Louis. Like I haven't, I've driven across the country and I've been to a lot of different cities, but I haven't been to St. Louis. And in fact, I have been telling Tracy quite frequently that after the production's done, I would like to road trip out to see her. And part of it is that I'm just equally fascinated by places less recognized. Like I like, as I put it, dirty cities. And that's not an insult. When I mean dirt, I mean I like texture.
It's got a patina and character.
Yeah. You can tell people live here, that they have left an impression, that it hasn't been scrubbed away yet. It made something clean and palatable and like easy to sell. It's just, it retains its own character and its own culture, and one that continues to grow and expand that you can appreciate, but which unfortunately is so often regarded as like the detritus of said city. So when people like, I live in Los Angeles right now, and has no end of criticism towards Los Angeles, plenty is worthy, but I actually really like the people out here. I like a lot of the folks that I work with are really interesting people who are from here. The folks who they've been here for like generations, and the culture that grew up around them, and just the food and just pockets and spaces that are just not where tourists go. And I love that stuff. I love it. And I love New Orleans. I love just how fucking messy New Orleans is. I picture the city in the same way as I picture my family from New Orleans. It's just kind of a hot mess, and all the more of a gem for it, basically.
I love a good hot mess.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes for good storytelling. That's what compelling stories are.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to tell a story about a happy, perfect place?
Yeah.
There are no such places, but
I grew up in a very dull suburban corner of New Hampshire. It wasn't even the interesting part of New Hampshire. It was like on the edge of the places that were interesting.
Yeah, same.
On the edge of Boston.
I was in Western Massachusetts, and it just was not the interesting part of Massachusetts by anyone's,
Other New Hampshirers call Nashua the flatlands for a reason. So it wasn't like a really intriguing place to live. But when I left home, sorry to detour into my thing, when I left home and I was living in Los Angeles for a while, and I wanted to start, writing my own stories, I was thinking about how it might be a good exercise to start writing about my home state, simply because I hadn't really thought about it very much. It was just a place I escaped from. But once I stopped, I was like, I'm going to write something about this. Then I fall in love with a region that I had just kind of written off, even though it was like where I was from. There's something about when you aim to write a story about a people or place where you are determined to research it and understand it inside and out, so that whatever you create is going to feel real, like it has a veracity to it, something that you can like sink your teeth into and share with other people. You start to like fall in love with it. I think that's the strength of being a storyteller, is that you can find pretty much any space and make use of what you've experienced in order to tell something compelling, sometimes even if it was something very negative. negative that you experience is just one way to process it. So I really appreciate people who can take those less shiny spaces and go, look at this beautiful gem, and appreciate the texture for what it is.
I love how you explain that. It kind of reminds me of how I always had different art teachers tell me your setting should be built as if it was a character. It's not just there. It has to have that, like what you said, that texture to it, that depth to it. Because if your setting isn't developed in that way, then what can your characters interact with? Nothing.
Exactly.
So it has
and
to
there's
have
an
that base
advantage
there.
to being in spaces where things are not perfect, because that creates conflict. It's like you embrace observing the conflict, like the things that are troublesome. And so something is not all good or bad. It's just, it has its problems and people have to live with those. And, that makes for just, you basically have your plot right there. And now you just write around it.
So using St. Louis, I feel like when you're using real places like that, you could go many different directions with it. You can make it extremely accurate, or you could say, oh, this takes place in this city, but it's just vaguely based off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that in Lackadaisy, especially in the comics, since it's more long form right now compared to the film, would you say that the places and the setting that these characters are interacting with are pretty accurate to the real St. Louis, or are you taking some liberties with it?
You kind of have to take some liberties in a lot of ways, because you end up, you have to kind of weigh your priorities and pick your battles and be like, well, I could be extremely accurate to this particular thing, but I have to take a detour to get there with the, the storytelling if I'm going to do it that way. And that just seems a bit too much of a divergence from the story and the flow of things moving forward. So you sometimes will just decide okay, I've got to prioritize story over actual fact here, but I usually will make note of it when I post comic pages and things beneath what I have decided and why. But I do feature a lot of actual locations, and I do try to remain, close to the spirit of the place as I possibly can. And just, of course, I'm pulling from my own personal experience and then kind of layering the 1920s aspect of it. And by its nature, that's an abstraction. I didn't live here in the 20s. I don't know exactly what it was like. It's not a firsthand account, but I try to do the best I can. But it's at the end of the day, it's also a comic told with talking cats, who I'm pretty sure did not populate all of St. Louis at the time.
Well, you forgot about the felinification beam?
A bit of an inaccuracy, I think.
It's nice that it wore off around the same time as the sepia wash on everything.
Yeah,
too.
that time when everything went color.
Yeah.
Before, when everything was black and white.
Yeah. They invented the color red
and
blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can see I gradually introduced those as they were invented in the timeline. Yes.
Do you have any of favorite Easter eggs you have in the story, actual settings you go to on the daily in your own life living in St. Louis? Or
well, actually, yeah, the house that Freckle lives in is actually my house.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, I think some people may have figured that out.
My belief is that Freckle's interest in yard work spawns from the fact that you have to do it.
Yes, I sit there and do my yard work, and I'm like, what if there was a character who enjoyed doing this? But no, I do kind of find it a bit cathartic to get outside, away from my computer and, hack away at some kudzu. But
with a machete?
Yeah, you kind of do need a machete for that stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of different, the town of Defiance, which, it's an unincorporated township in the area, is actually real. The Bevo Mill with the big windmill looking restaurant that they eat at is a real place. The Eads Bridge that Rocky does the poem on at the beginning is there. And even the Little Daisy Cafe is based on a little storefront that I really liked from down in Leeds Landing in St. Louis. So yeah, it's all kind of based on real
now
stuff.
with the popularity of the short, you think that place is going to get flooded?
No.
How many tourists are going to go to St. Louis and be like, where's the cats and the cave bars?
No, I really don't. It doesn't stand out as a particularly unique storefront. It's kind of the style of that mid to late 1800s facade of a
if they figure it out, they're going to be so confused. You're going to have to go there and say, I'm sorry, the story.
I changed the number on the building too, so it's not the same building number, but yeah, so lots of nods and homages, I guess you would say, to actual St. Louis things. And,
cool.
A lot of people, in and around the area who have taken note that, oh, I know that place. I've reached out and said how much they appreciate it, because it really is a location that doesn't get a lot of, media attention or acknowledgement of its existence and things.
I thought it was really unique. You're talking about where he's reciting the poem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever recalled a movie that I've watched or an animation I've watched where they start off with just reciting.
Yeah.
And it carries all the way through.
Did you guys write that poem, or is it pulled from somewhere?
Tracy
I wrote it.
It's originally in the comic.
It's from the comic originally.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
and I
cool.
said to Tracy, I was like, we're going to start this with the poem. And you're like, oh, I don't know. about that.
I'm pretty sure I wrote it to start with the poem and then later regretted it. So
yeah, and I was like, look, if this puts them off, they're not going to like Lackadaisy because this is extremely rocky. So you might as well put them off fast.
Yeah, I ultimately agreed with you, but we were at times we're contemplating cutting it a lot shorter because we know that when you're promising, gangster car chases and shootouts and things, and you open with a long poem in animation, it's like people are going to be like, what in the hell is this? Like, bye. And it's also not a, like, I guess, especially easily parsed poem. It's like, what in the hell is he even talking about? He's talking to the river. What's going on? It is a strange way to open the thing, but I feel like it's also a bit of an introduction to like, okay, this is also kind of a strange way to tell a gangster story.
Yeah.
It is that, but it's not a Coppola film. It's definitely not like a Scorsese style, like sort of gangster story. It just isn't in that same, doesn't chase after that sort of storytelling.
Well, it kind of sets the mood too, which is really cool.
I hope so. And I hope it didn't turn too many people off or away from it, but we were looking at the graphs in the analytics.
I will argue, honestly, that if it turned some people away, that was all the better, because it's like the people who are left are going to be that much more passionate.
We were analyzing the analytics, as you do, on YouTube to see if like there was a big drop off when the poem began in like viewership, but it didn't seem to be the case.
Nope.
Hey, a click is still a click. So
yeah, that's
get
true.
that.
That's true.
YouTube does notice if people click away immediately. And so what we noticed in the analytics was that if people clicked away, it was before there was even 2 words on the screen, which suggests that they clicked it and either they went, it's black, I don't care, because it starts off dark, or they went, oh, it's 27 minutes, I'll watch this later, or they went, oh, oops, I accidentally clicked that, I didn't mean to.
Right.
So, but for whoever kept watching, they watched throughout. Like, we can see that most people who stayed past that first sentence stayed throughout the entire thing. And the only drop off that we noticed was once the credits popped up. However,
there's more after the credits.
There's more after the credits. So if for some reason you didn't watch the credits and didn't watch all the way through, do that, especially since our motion graphics artist Lolly did an amazing job with the credits, and you should totally admire his work. But also, we could see in the analytics that there is a peak just before the credits, which means that people are rewinding to go watch the credits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found that very interesting. And I wanted to have the film reward you if you stuck with it. If you, step out at any point and decide not to keep watching, fine. But if you stay with it, you get more information and more questions, more importantly, because every time a question is answered, another one pops up. And so the goal was just to inspire your curiosity while you're watching as much as possible, so that by the end you're saying, who's this? Who's that? What happened? I want to check it out. And you go and you rewatch it again. And you go, okay, I got this, this, and this. But what about that one thing? And the density promotes rewatchability, essentially, in the same way as the comic's own density will also promote rereadability. Like, I've reread the comics so many times, and I talk to Tracy every day, and yet I'll sit there and I'll still like reread the comic sometimes, and I'll catch another thing, and I'll be like, you just spotted that one thing, and then Tracy's like,
Were the characters developed before, during, or after your research?
Kind of all at the same time, writing something like this. I don't know, maybe there are people who do a very like step-by-step methodical approach, and they will, do X amount of research, then just invent the characters and then just start writing. But it was all kind of a intermingled thing for me, where I was doing all of those things kind of, I would start coming up with these like basic premises. Like, I had established that, yes, I want this to be in the 20s. I want it to be in a speakeasy, and I want it to be in a speakeasy underground in the limestone caves, because that is actually also a very prominent feature of St. Louis and St. Louis history. It's the fact that the city has just caves all over underneath it.
I noticed that. I was like, interesting. This is underground.
Yeah. And there actually is a St. Louis brewery, the Lemp Brewery, that made use of those caves. I mean, a lot of the breweries did, because that's a good place to lager and to store things and to move things, without having to cut through, street traffic and things. They would just build, or use the existing caves underground to move stuff around from one building to another.
Interesting.
And so it was put to, as you might imagine, extensive use during Prohibition to secret away alcohol. They'd build beer gardens in them, and the Lemp Brewery had, like, the Lemp family at one point had a theater and a swimming pool and some other things, like other facilities, underground in Cherokee Cave, which is kind of beneath their facility. And so that just really inspired me to do that sort of thing. But yeah, it was all kind of a like research, and then kind of weave these, like, I have like, maybe the skeleton of a character, and then you start introducing like these elements that actually are part of their lives and that they're involved in, and or that brought them here, or things like that. And they start becoming more fleshed out, as you go, as you start fleshing out story details. So it all kind of like takes shape all together so that it's a character driven story and they all fit where they are, not just like trying to write a plot and then, slot characters in to carry out the plot. Like they have really been the things that took form and then determined a lot of the course of the story themselves, as if they had some agency of their own.
You have all these little homunculi running through
it is like that. They are brain children and I can't control them anymore. I just tell stories about what I watch them do in my head, like, okay, I can't tell you what to do anymore. You have grown up beyond that, and so I must just record your misadventures.
Typically,
so yeah,
it's tell you how they are.
It does become like that. Like at some point, there's this like reversal where you are steering them, but then at some point they take on enough dimension in your head that you just can't anymore. Like what they're going to do.
Yeah, you could try to assign them a plot thing to do, and it's like, but how would they even do that? And it's like, if it's just out of character, it's out of character. Or if it is out of character, then why would they do that? And
right,
that's an interesting thing.
Yeah. One of the things that, really takes me out of things when I'm watching the show or something is, characters who just suddenly change personality in order to carry out, something that was convenient for the plot. And it's like, oh, that's,
Because movie.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting watching react videos, which I've never really been into react videos, but watching react videos of the movie has been fascinating because I don't usually get to see people watch people watching work that I have done, even though I've done a lot of work in the television industry. I don't watch the audience, I don't get to go in a theater and see them react. I just have to assume the reaction one way or another, or see comments here and there. But the react videos have been really interesting for so many reasons. Now I'm obsessed with it. I'm like, oh, you have a condition now. This looks so, it seems so full of yourself. You're watching your own movie over and over again and watching people talk about it. Ooh. But I'm just fascinated by their responses. And I'm always just giddy if they grasp something that I was afraid was going to be too difficult to pick up on, but they do. And it's accomplishment. And one thing I love is seeing people, there's slow realization as they watch the movie that this guy that they entered the film with, this weird poet, is not all there in the head, and you can actually watch them start picking up on the fact that maybe he's not okay. And then around the time that he finds the demolitions shed, they're like, oh, he's cuckoo bananas.
He's got the zoomies.
He does. Oh, no. He has the zoomies, all right.
That was the best when he's throwing down the dynamite.
And then we leave him for a while and then forget about him, and then he shows up again. They're like, oh no. And it's so satisfying to see those reactions because I love seeing people go, oh fuck.
Almost more than that, I enjoy seeing people ask questions out loud. Yeah. Why is he doing that? I was I wonder if there's something. It's because you're trying, with a pilot especially, you're really trying to imply a lot of story because you don't have time to delve into the backstory of every character or explore every avenue.
And I totally understand criticisms that are this, what kind of episode one is this? Or that's not a short film. It's
it's not an episode one is the answer. It's a pilot. That's
It's this is not how I would start an episode one. Not at all.
Introducing, a story, conflicts, the setting, and a lot of the core characters, but also a lot of the story threads that this thing is, that make up this thing.
So we focused on introducing people to the characters, kind of like a sampler platter, basically, that summarizes a lot of the tone and humor and
interrelationships.
Conflicts and that kind of thing. And what we wanted was for people to ask questions. We're deliberately withholding information and hinting at answers, but to beg your curiosity. Because I think a lot of media nowadays is really reluctant to engage that part of the human experience, to make you ask questions without fully resolving it or fully answering everything. Because that's what keeps things interesting, is sometimes the absence of information is where your brain will start filling things in and you get more attached to it. And you're starting to see more interest in that kind of thing in terms of style, at least, visual style, analog anything, analog horror, where the low resolution, grainy, pixelated look of things allows your imagination to play with what the visuals of a scary monster actually look like. And then it becomes just more frightening because your brain is building that image. You're not being shown it. It's being implied to you. But you can do the same thing with narrative storytelling, where when you leave out information, it invites the audience to ask a question and try to fill it in themselves. And even if they get it not quite right, it's still interesting to see in what ways they got it not quite right, because often, even if the exact detail that they think maybe it's this isn't quite right, they still got the core concept and the core relationship, and they understood that. So I don't know. I love seeing people their eyes light up. They're like, oh, and ask questions, because I think that's just one of the more fascinating parts of humanity. So I like inviting
definitely.
that.
Asking people to think definitely invites further engagement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see a bump in engagement on the webcomic from people trying to answer those questions themselves by reading?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
The comic
They hugged
website
it to death.
premiere day and a couple days after, it just kind of decided to lay down and die because it was a bit.
It's not like they didn't try
flooded.
to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
It just exploded so hard that there was, our Jay, the webmaster,
Jay,
was his butt off to fix it.
Bless him, helped me migrate the site over to a new host so that we could have it in a place where it could remain functional while traffic was increased, and it was just a more stable place to be. So he kind of put some extra late night hours into doing that, and extremely grateful for that.
And then he pulled a whole thingy out of his butt on April 1st, which I was so happy, happy we built. That was really.
We did a mini ARG on April 1st.
Yeah, thanks again, Nick Nocturne, for helping us set this up.
It needed the website functional to work, so.
Yeah.
So a lot of people so many people have come together and just given us a helping hand just to make this work. And
when you needed it most.
Yeah, none of these projects like this are done in a vacuum. Like, I kind of hate the way they get associated with one person's name only, because that just seems to be all anybody wants to remember is
I'm so uncomfortable about that every time I talk about the film, it's like I feel uncomfortable saying my movie, even though I guess I technically could, because it's like it's our movie, it's the crew's movie, like all of them contributed, and I can see their fingerprints all over it. And I just was like, hey, let's head in this direction, basically.
Never mind the massive amounts of support we had around us to just keep people being paid, to, balance the books and, make sure all of that, like those logistical things were also functioning. The website was functioning, like
not a
Discord,
single role.
The Discord server and the Lackadaisy community was all organized and functional and not turning, feral or something. Yeah, like it takes a lot of people and a lot of help and to get all that stuff taken care of while you have your head buried in the art part of things.
The fact that we were like, okay, we think we could handle this degree of response, although it was a shock, but we still had made preparations, and all the people who are like helping us out and continuing to help us out, because it's garnered enough attention that, people be sniffing around. But I could reach out to my colleagues from my work, from like various studios I was part of, and be like, hey, this is going on. Do you have any advice? Do you have anybody I could talk to? Do you know an advocate that I can speak with, so that we don't fall into some tragic trap that can happen whenever something gets a little bit too popular too fast.
Speaking of that team that was helping you all out, what did your creative team look like for the film project specifically? How did you build that team up? What factors go into deciding who you are working with?
Well, once upon a time on DeviantArt, there was a book series called Warriors Cats, and a bunch of very dedicated teenagers with a lot of free time have been making like tons of just cartoons on YouTube for a series that largely doesn't have many visuals and has no official cartoons of its own. I think just like a couple of comics and things. And I remember when I was in college and seeing like what was just like a bunch of like 12-year-olds starting off doing this stuff, I was like, wow, they're really good. I hope I get to work with some of those people someday. And then now I'm 35 and I managed to hire on some of these kids who are like now in college or later even, and be like, hey, you know how to animate cats. Would you like to join the cat movie?
We put out a call for animation reel submissions, and the Warrior Cats people answered that clarion call.
Oh, I bet.
Before, so.
Yeah.
But there was also a lot of like, Fable turning to people from the industry that they know to ask for help and advice. Like all of the storyboard artists are basically people you've worked with before, Fable. And I reached out to Newt because I knew Newt was reliable, a great 3D artist, also was the Lackadaisy community manager. And he just did pretty much all of our 3D layout for us and made all of our 3D props.
Oh man, Newt is such the core of the production. Like, praise be to Newt.
Yeah, and we reached out to Spike because we collaborated with Spike because Spike, who is the owner, founder of Iron Circus Comics, not
no,
Spike Lee, Spike Trotman. Different Spike, but equally as cool. Spike just has this like backstory of like raising up her publishing company on crowdfunding from Kickstarter. Like she'd done these Kickstarter things before, so we knew like we need Kickstarter help if we're going to Kickstarter something and do it right and be a success, and then have a way to pay a crew. Like Spike's just going to be essential to that. So and she was really on board with the idea.
Yeah.
So
projects like this, if they do collapse, frequently it's because of money issues. And I was like, I don't want paying people and having the money and like organizing who's holding the money and what and et cetera. that to become an issue because
right, like
it's
the
always
last thing you
tragic.
need is somebody who's irresponsible with it, or who isn't doing proper bookkeeping, or who takes the money and absconds with it or something. Like all these nightmare things that have happened to Kickstarter projects before. We knew that wasn't going to happen with Spike, and so that was, we could go into this going like, we're assured that this will be a stable way to run that part of the production process.
God, I never thought about that with the finances and book balancing.
Taxes,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
God.
1099s, miscellaneous.
You think of these Kickstarter projects, and I think, like you said, they don't exist in a vacuum. I feel like a lot of consumers don't think about those things. Also, they think about the creative process, like, there's the animators and the storyboard artists and the voice actors, but there's so much more that goes behind just organizing all these people.
Yes, that's essential staff. Essential.
Yeah, the organization and communication aspect of this is like probably 60% of the effort and work and worry that goes into this. Like, I mean, that's no small amount, because like the actual animation work is extremely like arduous work. So, but probably, I mean, a great deal of your time, especially if you're in a role like Fable as a director, you are doing a whole lot of communicating and a whole lot of artwork. And so
while exhausted,
yes.
Yeah.
How did Fable get the role of director?
So, that's a funny story.
I'm a very, very poor person who needed to replace my Cintiq because otherwise I wouldn't be able to eat.
No.
Yes.
So I put out a note saying, hey, who wants a movie?
Yeah. So I'd been like, kicking around in my head the idea of doing animated Lackadaisy stuff for a long, long time. When I first started, working out the idea for the comic, like I was approaching it as a comic specifically because I couldn't do it as an animation by myself. Like I needed something to work on in the late night hours after work, and I decided, since this is a solo project, like if I was to animate it, I'd only be able to do like little tiny snippets of like 3D animation or something, and that wouldn't really capture the full story that I really want to tell. So I was like, well, I guess comic is the vehicle I'm going to use for it. But when I close my eyes and I think of it and I work out the narrative and, do the writing that happens in your head, like I'm watching an animated film. I'm watching the Don Bluth movies that I grew up on and things like that. So, it looks like that. And so I always kind of envisioned it as like, well, if I could animate it, that'd be just amazing. And then, come 2016, 2017, I started thinking about it more seriously. I'm seeing people start their own indie things and do some really cool stuff on YouTube. And I realized like, okay, the tools are available and there's crowdfunding that you can do at this point in time. When I started the comic, there was no Kickstarter. It was like, the aughts still, it was like 2006. So, for a long time, there was no Kickstarter or Patreon or anything like that to do these kinds of
if you wanted money, you had to go out and, put your hat out and do a little jig.
No, the only way you could make money in comics was to put ads on your, it was like that, like, what was that ad system that all the webcomic artists use? I can't remember.
Project Wonder?
Project Wonderful, that was
Project
it.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Project Runway?
No. I mean, that'd be cool too. But you could raise some money
Maybe you
that way.
could have gotten into fashion instead of comics then.
Yeah, but and then just like out of the blue, I saw Fable say something and Fable and I had been traveling in the same artistic circles for a long time. Both kind of
we're both old DeviantArt farts.
DeviantArt, like garbage raccoons in the dumpster, just kind of like making stuff. And
I'm the little.
I do too, honestly.
You're the stray cat.
Yeah, just fishing out like fish bones from the garbage
Fighting
in
over
there.
fish bones.
But yeah, we had since like crawled out of that space and into other social media spaces as that horizon broadened and sadly dispersed. But
I'm sure anybody from the same primordial ooze has watched the movie and go, "This fucking DeviantArt." And it's like, you're right.
It's DeviantArt all over it. But yeah, so I was, following Fable on other social media as well, because I had also, spent time reading Black Blood Alliance, and we had crossed paths at numerous conventions and things. And I saw them saying like they needed to replace a Cintiq, and they were looking for some animation commissions. And I reached out and was like, hey, what do you think about like making a pitch for Lackadaisy, like an animated Lackadaisy thing? And they were like,
do you have the screenshot of that first convo somewhere? Did you save that?
I have it somewhere on my hard drive. I mean, I still have it in my Twitter like messages from way back. I could just
like how long would it take?
I'll have to like get it framed or something.
Yeah.
But and Fable was like, fuck yes, I do. And so we started on that, and then like you enlisted Ashley Green and got some help putting a pitch together, and we talked a lot about it and what we would put in it and how we would present the characters, and put a little pitch packet together. And Fable
shout out to Ashley Green, by the way, creator writer of Monsters Garden.
And also a storyboard artist on the project, and
and my good friend.
Yeah, Ashley's awesome.
Oh.
But yeah, that kind of resulted in the pitch, and Fable had shown it around to some people in the LA area, in the industry to get some advice. And the advice we got was, well, studios are very risk averse. They're going to look at this and go, it's cute and cool and all, but we're not going to touch this with a 10-foot pole because it's not like, a Family Guy or a,
Where can the pop song fit in here? Huh?
Yeah, it's like they just aren't going to take a chance on some
They're
unknown
like, I
thing.
don't know, an adult cartoon that has cute animals in it. Nobody wants that. That's going to confuse people.
Well, you're not, you don't have, if you aren't a celebrity or you aren't already a showrunner of something, or you aren't like, working your way up within the industry into some prominent role where you can really pitch something and have people take you very seriously. You really, there are certainly people who have done it, and you've got to be like profoundly tenacious, I imagine.
Yeah, but like 10 years in the ministry was not enough clout to grant me free reign to
right.
make a production. So
I think Pendleton Ward told you, just go make this yourself.
Yeah, I was talking to him after like another rejection, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that I could get this made if I just like did a Kickstarter. We could totally get like a short or pilot done. He was like, if you want to make a cartoon, make a cartoon. Don't wait for anybody's permission. And I was like, well, fuck, when Pendleton Ward tells you that, you should probably follow his advice. So, off I went after Midnight Gospel. Like, he was my showrunner then. And
God, I love that show.
Yeah, I love working on that. Like, that was fun. That was a really fun job. And while I was working there, like I was still picking away at this pitch thing. And once the job wrapped up, I was able to just dive headlong into this. And that was a bit difficult on pocketbooks, both my own and Tracy's, just trying to float for a while. But I managed to catch the ear of Spike Trotman when I met up with her at Comic Arts LA, which is this tiny comic convention that takes place in a gymnasium, and it's just like a bunch of little indie
full-length tables and
full-length tables selling their sometimes printed from home comics. It's very old school like that. There's like a lot of really cool people that will show up there, like just to peruse and sell because it's really genuine. And Spike happened to be there. And I had been thinking about, I was trying to brainstorm ways to get in touch with her because like just shooting her an email might have just gotten lost. And she was right there. So I was able to just be like, hey, Spike, did you know that Tracy is a free agent? And she basically backflipped because like, of course she wanted to talk to Tracy Butler. She, Iron Circus Comics, Lackadaisy, they'd go like, just really nice marriage, basically. But then when I said, and we're working on getting a animated cartoon kickstarted, would you like to be a part of it? And that woman went to the moon. You've never seen someone's eyes get so big and glisten that hard. And I remember that day I went home after like a lot of conversations with her and calling Tracy. And I was like in my bedroom, I was talking to Clint. I was like, oh shit. Oh no. I've done it now. And thus began the journey. That was this short, more or less.
Yeah.
This is pre-COVID, by the way.
Yeah,
we did not realize just how blurst this production would become.
Yeah, the Kickstarter launched on that day in 2020 when everything went into lockdown and the stock market like plummeted, and we were like, "Oh no!"
So with COVID really peaking when this was really digging your heels into this, like your team members, I remember I watched a video one of your animators actually posted on YouTube.
Yeah, Manu.
Yeah, and he talked about how you guys were working through a Discord, and I was like, that's sick.
Yeah, Discord was our virtual studio, and it worked out great, actually.
That's amazing. I've never, maybe some other animators and different projects have used it like that before, but I haven't seen it. And I'm like, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's a virtual studio, and you don't even have to like wear a headset and have like a really clunky, soulless looking avatar represent you with no legs. It turns out you can just be in a voice call or not be in a voice call, up to you. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know, you don't have to like sit there on voice call with me, not unless we're trying to go through something specific that requires it.
Yeah, but it facilitated all the things we needed, which was being in voice call meetings, exchanging text messages, dropping files and swapping, making them downloadable. Screen sharing, and, so Fable could just give live notes to people.
Custom emojis so that we could react to each other with like goofy Lackadaisy cat faces.
Yeah, and it also gave us a place to goof off too, because we shared a whole lot of cat cat pictures there over the course of production, and obviously some dumb memes too. But
oh my god, I did so many dumb doodles at like 1 a.m. because I'm like, I've lost my mind. Time to draw something stupid.
yeah.
So I have zero experience in the art industry professionally, but with the idea of like Discord being your hub, and it seems like you had a really great environment going on here. How would you compare the environment that was happening under Lackadaisy compared to other projects you've worked on?
Well, most projects I've worked on when I've been work from home, which, was a thing that would happen even before COVID, because a lot of us in the animation industry, like we have computers at home that are powerful enough to run software. And sometimes when you're looking for jobs, like they might not even have office space or care to bring in workers. A lot of freelance jobs like that had in particular required me to work from home.
Unless you're Cintiq Bricks.
Yeah. Then you're just screwed. So
Nice.
I had a lot of experience. I had a lot of experience with work from home where people would just talk to each other through email chains. And you pretty much would only talk to the director, the production coordinator, and that's about it. And feedback would be few and far between, very stilted. You never got like a really good idea of how people were reacting to your work. And it's just kind of very dull. And whenever I was in studio and doing work, I just found that much more dynamic, because seeing people react and respond real time to your work and getting that kind of real-time feedback was just way nicer. Like, I've never been like, terrified or upset by critical feedback. I found it very necessary for getting to the goal, which is basically, does this work for the project? Have I pleased the director, like gotten to what they wanted? And, I like that environment. I also just like listening to people and hearing their experiences, and just getting out of the house is nice too. But I knew that there was no way we were going to do this project and have like a physical building. That's just unrealistic. And so many people that I needed to work with, including Tracy, did not live in the same space as me. So before I did the short, I had been on Has Been Hotel and had done a few animated scenes from that. And I hadn't been on it originally, but I had heard that they actually had a Discord server. So I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. But I also knew that a number of projects, like multi-animated projects and Reanimates, would frequently make use of chat spaces like Discord in order to organize their setups. So I decided to put together a production of the All Dogs Go to Heaven Reanimate, which you can
I love that video.
Yeah, I did that. And that's, or rather, I arranged that. I didn't do every shot, just a few. And I organized all that on Discord. So that's where I was coordinating everyone and making sure that they had the segments that they needed. And, if they wanted feedback on something, because I was like, I'm just working on this little thing, and they wanted feedback, like I was just there and I would give them some feedback, and just generally had a really good time. And I was like, this is a really good way to run a virtual studio. I would like to do something like that again in the future. And occasionally when I was in other studios, I would also be the one who would like set up a Slack or something to allow the crew to talk to each other. And there'd be like a casual Slack, not just whatever the studio set up, if they set up anything at all.
Are you talking about like the Slack as in like the program?
The program Slack. Yeah, that's like the other version of Discord, basically, with fewer fun emojis.
Yep, that had been what I worked with on my
professional version
game industry job. Yeah, we did occasional work from home, mostly in office, but and we'd have all of our Scrum meetings over that, and do a lot of our exchanges and things that way. So,
but I'm a person who has. This is going to sound so bad, but I set up so many like RP forums and stuff once upon a time. So I always really liked organizing like community spaces.
You're seasoned.
Like I'm a seasoned forum administrator.
Put that on your resume.
Yeah, I guess I could at this point. And so I wanted to set up the server in a way where it was like there was fun zones and work zones and drop-off zones. And it was clear, if we wanted to have a meeting, there would be like rooms basically for it. And the information would be very organized so that, even though there's like a gajillion channels on our work server, they all serve a purpose. And so that made communication fairly easy, especially because, we'd have people from all over the world working on this. And so if somebody is in Europe and they're posting stuff at 3 a.m., as much as I want to get up and give them a note immediately, probably a good idea to leave that until like I had my coffee and, maybe 6 hours more sleep. And that way I knew I had to get back to stuff, because it would be kind of like the checklist was the chat room essentially. And it was much less difficult to lose track of everything I needed to do, because there are 400 shots in this movie. If you miss even one and like something goes awry, oh man. you don't want to lose track of things. It gets bad fast. But yeah, that was interesting to set up, and the team really responded to it, and they really enjoyed being able to see the work of everybody else and being able to watch the film come together in front of them. And the VAs in particular were fascinated, because usually when they're brought onto projects, they go in, they record lines for an hour, then they get out, and then maybe 2 years later they get to see their performance on screen, if it ever comes out in the first place. So they're very disconnected from production, despite being animation nerds themselves. That's why they get into voice acting largely. And they were just loved watching things come together. And again, it made them like ever the more attached to those characters, because they saw how much effort people put into them. And I think it's important for all aspects of animation to just like communicate together, so that the collective direction is understood. And then my job is just to facilitate that. It's not to actually drag everybody by a leash and yoink them into a direction. So what you were seeing is the collective vision of like just so many people, like over 150 people.
That's so
down
awesome.
to like a 60, 170, something. I've actually lost track of how many people touched this.
Yeah, it was like 170 something, I think, that we had. Total,
Yeah.
172 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, there might be some redundant names in there because we're just looking at the raw amount of people that are on the server, sort of.
But there, yeah, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
it just takes that many people to make something like this. So
yeah. It's not the journey of one person, and I know my name is stamped all over the place, but it really, really is a group effort. Like there's
You
a
have
reason
a lot of hats.
I wear a lot of hats, but a lot of other people wore even more hats collectively than I did. So I think that is to be respected. And I was just trying to keep up, largely. Keep up and support them.
Tracy, what was your role like in the creation of the animated shorts specifically? Like, did you have your hands in any storyboarding or animation notes, anything like that?
a little bit of everything. Fable and I collaborated on writing the script, then the storyboard.
Did you do any voices as well?
I forced her to.
Yeah.
She did
Just
one.
one.
She did
Made
one
a cameo.
voice.
made
I
a
had to
cameo
beg her
here.
for it, but if you watch the prologue, you might recognize the voice at the very beginning. Or you will now if you've now been hearing Tracy talk.
Yeah, and I got quite involved in the character redesign because we had to take all of the characters and basically make them animatable. And the comic is a style that doesn't really lend itself entirely to that, so we really had to work out a new way to approach them. And gosh, I was there for all of the revision meetings we did. Those were like some overnight adventures.
Late
and,
nights.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
just like taking the storyboards, writing our notes on them, writing acting notes for the characters in there to like make sure the facial expressions are Lackadaisy-like and things like that.
I had a crash course in everything Lackadaisy, and
Yeah,
that's difficult.
When we did the
figuring
voice
out.
recording, I was there doing half of the directing on that. So that was an exhausting and amazing experience.
Mhm.
That was like 3 days of like intense voice recording. Then we did a bunch of the same thing for the comic dubs as well. So, getting all that art prepared for, we promised in the Kickstarter, like mini comic dubs collection, which we would release incrementally during, the course of production. So we kind of like saddled ourselves with some extra work, but that's, what it took to get this thing funded. So a lot of that went on during production, where I was just working with the editors to get them all the art they needed and, chopped up in ways they needed it. I edited 3 books together during the course of production, and we had to promise an art book to get this funded. So that was a lot of my time in the first year was spent on putting that together and making all these like contents for that book, and then doing all the layout and copywriting and everything for that. Not copywriting, but like writing copy. So,
Ooh, girls breaking the rules.
yeah. And I mean, it's copyrighted, but it's also it's copy that I wrote. But doing all the cover art for that, then ended up doing a bunch of background art and little fixes here and there for compositors during the last stretch here. But I had to put together a new volume 1, new volume 2. We did some pin designs, like we had to keep funding this thing as well, because although we raised about $300,000, and it was less than that when you actually get your funds dropped from Kickstarter, they take their fees, and you get a lot of pledges that were with cards that expired in between when people pledged and when the Kickstarter actually put the charge through, and you get the Stripe fees and all that. So what you actually get is more like, we raised $330,000, and we actually got, I think it was like $289, something like
I
that.
had to sit down and be like, how do I turn this into a movie?
A lot of the pre-planning and things that went into this, like, yeah, again, one of those things that's probably overlooked about productions like this is you really have to plan out your budget and where your money's going. And Fable had to come up with a very detailed budget breakdown for Spike and, make it clear, like, here's what we're spending, here's, so that Spike wasn't going to be ultimately saddled with, thousands and thousands of extra dollars in charges that weren't, like, oh, oops, we forgot to add this in. And,
Yeah, even so, I still feel like there's ways I could have improved my approach, but so much of it was based on my assumption originally that this was going to be 15, maybe 18 minutes long, and
we got pretty ambitious with it.
Well, that's to put it mildly. I remember going to Spike and I just wanted to throw up and being like, look, we could have this be an 18-minute cut, but it's not going to be good. This needs more breath. Is it okay if we just extend out the time budget a bit? And, it's going to take longer for me to work on this, and I'd like to work on it for free, but I can't afford to, and I hate to ask you for more money. And she's like, it's fine. Like, I believe in this, and, make it good. It was essentially what she asked for. And I was like, I didn't want to betray that faith. And I very much wanted to make something that made the investment worth it.
Right. So, yeah, what we did was we made more merch to raise more funds. And so we did pin designs, we did the film poster during the course of production, and then printed that out, made it for sale, signed it. We did t-shirts, we did shot glass sets, and all of that kind of went back into the project to help, we made emoji sets and downloadable things and stuff just to keep money, flowing in, because it costs more than $200,000, $250,000 to make this much animation. Like, if you look at, it depends on who's making it. A lot of anime will make things much cheaper, but I feel like that's not at all the gold standard for how to treat artists.
Run a production the way that they do in Japan would involve paying people.
It would have involed hurting people.
Insulting.
And so we didn't want to do that. But you look at it, Western studios will often spend, $1 million or so on an episode. And so, we were working on the cheap. And so we had to just find ways to pull more money in and be resourceful. And and I'm just glad that everybody working on this, and especially Spike and Fable, were just very level-headed about it and just had their shit together. And, because something like this can so easily go awry if, somebody has unrealistic expectations or just thinks this is supposed to go faster than this. Why isn't this going faster? Or this shouldn't cost this much. It's like, it does.
Especially because Spike had not had experience in the middle of animation production. So she was largely trusting me and what I said was necessary. And I just greatly appreciate that.
Yeah. But having been through it, it's so easy to see how a lot of these projects fall apart.
Yeah.
But because it's hard. It's really hard.
People throw this word scam around a lot for projects that genuinely just crumbled because of that happening.
Mismanagement, or just somebody having just not an full understanding of what.
It's not a scam. It's just that it's really difficult to make a movie.
It's honestly kind of amazing anything like this ever comes together. Having worked both in games and on this, it's anytime you finish something, it's considering all the costs and the moving parts and everything, it's incredible that this got done.
Yeah. I was like, if nothing else, I want to finish this film. We will have a finished film by the end of it in whatever condition it will be. And I will make sure as best I can that it's going to be something that at least the crew could be proud of, because I wanted to be something that celebrated the efforts that they put into it. And I'm glad they followed me on that. And, I just want to take what we've done here and keep expanding on it and make all that effort mean something for them, that it translates into something for them. It's not just wow, look at me, I'm super famous or whatever. It's no, I really don't need that, but I want their effort to be appreciated for what it is. It's
right.
It is a collaborative medium. It takes a group of people to make something like this.
And it's kind of amazing how this community came together to help fund this. The bulk of it, how are you mentioning when you were giving this pitch out and not a lot of people were taking it because they want to play it safe. Whenever I'm seeing, especially animated media that is in theaters or on television or streaming services, it is very much more safe. But these projects I'm seeing on Kickstarters and these passion projects that are getting posted to YouTube, it's nice to see that there are other options to get these things made. It's not necessarily easy, certainly not, especially with getting that funding. Good Lord.
In fact, I've told people who are oh, I want to do this too. I'm don't do it the way we did. Start really small. Start with 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Don't make your first project that you do like a 30-minute epic or like a TV series or anything like that, because your ears are still wet. You know, you gotta learn. It's not just a baby bird does not just immediately fly the moment it's born. It has to build up its muscles.
And it's not just the art. It's the everything else too, that the business acumen that you have to have, and the organizational and communication skills, and the maturity to keep your head on straight when things get hairy. Yeah.
22-year-old me would not have been a good director.
Yeah, no, I could not have done this in my 20s. It would have been a disaster.
No.
I don't want to walk into a trap, but how old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 42.
Oh, I'm baby.
You don't sound 42.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
I don't feel 42.
Hey, don't let him off the bat. What does a 42-year-old sound like?
Like this. I don't know.
Okay.
You're about to be 40.
I don't know what they're supposed to sound
I
like.
came to you from the 1980s. I am,
Whoa.
the eldest of the elder millennials, I think. So, yeah.
And I'm 27. I wouldn't want to do this in my 20s either. Now I'm already
everybody
30s
likes
are better.
to applaud your
30s
20s,
are better.
It's like your 20s,
No,
20s are
I
like
hate
the
being in
time
my
period
20s.
in which you like make all the mistakes, but you're an adult, so it sucks.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we had this interesting question, because I don't want to steer too far away from the film itself, but since Lackadaisy has been a long-standing comic for years now, have you ever considered pushing the story forward or creating a sequel in a later historical timeline, such as like the Red Scare of the 50s?
There certainly are a lot of time points in history that I'm fascinated by and would love to explore in storytelling, but I feel like I have my hands more than full with just Lackadaisy alone. It's been a solo project this entire time, and there's so much to making comics from the the writing standpoint and the art standpoint and the page layouts and like the graphic design sort of sensibilities that go into that, and like treating each panel as kind of like in its own little illustration in a way that I haven't gotten bored with it, and so I'm not looking to move on. I really just want to, bring that to its completion, and that takes it long enough itself. And I think I'm one of those creators who's like, I'm okay with being like the one project person in my lifetime. Like, this is my, the artistic love of my life. I'm not really planning to divorce it and move on to like some other love affair. Like, I just want to make this. I do want to tell like, I do like doing side comics and things like that. And I love like horror things and like little horror anthologies and stuff. And maybe some point in the future, I'll do something like that just as a one-off thing or whatever. But yeah, I'm really just kind of committed to this right now. So that's where I stand.
You can always make Red Scary MVs in your head when you're on the school bus.
That's true. That's true. I can imagine the music video in my head, and that's enough for me sometimes.
I personally love our discussion.
The AUs,
the Lackadaisy 2020, where we imagine the characters in the present day instead, and like how that changes everything.
Yeah.
But also it doesn't.
Lackadaisy in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Would the Lackadaisy team, so would you guys ever in the future release a behind the scenes video, like a creative process behind the creation of the animated short?
Kind
of like special features.
We are making a making of book, something we promised to the Kickstarter.
Oh, that's so cool. I love those types of books.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we are, in the process actually presently of outlining that. We've got somebody like enlisted to do the copywriting for it.
The same writer who we have doing the Little Daisy Cafe blog.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
He's been keeping our blog updated this whole time.
He's been here the entire time from the very beginning. Is my wonderful partner, a very talented writer.
Yeah, Clint's great.
Yeah. He's the raccoon in the trash can, along with the cat and the toothy bird.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we'll give a glimpse of what's going on. But you can also, like we mentioned, the short documentary that Manu Mercurial made.
I love that.
Yeah, it just surprised me with it. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea he was working on that.
It's so well done too. I'm like,
it is very well produced and just entirely touching, and it's
like, what do you even say when somebody says that kind, like, just gives this to you and it's like, here, and it's like, oh my god,
they hand you a documentary and like, you changed my life, thanks, and it's like, oh,
I was like, what?
I got a little teary-eyed watching that. So but it does give you a glimpse into like what things were like on the work server and what our process was and how things went for the animators and how animators shared information and worked together. And
I just really loved seeing that, because I feel I'm not in the animation industry. My partner graduated in animation though, and it seems that there's so much stress, and I don't want to say like, I don't even know how to word it, us versus them in a way, on certain animation teams. And I see it on a lot of documentaries, especially about like DreamWorks versus Disney and how these two CEOs fought for a while. It's just, you see a lot of cutthroat things in the animation
That's the higher ups, though. Like, the crews, like, a lot of us actually have worked at one or the other or both. We have friends there. Like, it's not antagonistic on the ground. Like, we're the ones celebrating each other. We're like the champions of the medium, after all. And
it's just
folks
a
who work
shame
at
that
Disney
that's
don't
the
go,
public image.
Fuck Puss in Boots. It's like, we're not invested in that way. We just want to make cartoons.
Yeah, it's just a shame that seems to be the public image because of those things. And I'm glad that there's at least one more video out there that shows that, hey, this isn't what it's like. Creatives are here supporting each other, and it happens.
Yeah, a lot of the people on our production, I mean, they work on other projects, on official television things, on other indie projects, and so it's not like, we don't see ourselves as like in competition with each other. We're part of the same community, this ecosystem of just everybody making cool stuff and contributing to it. So people just float between different projects and contribute in their own unique ways. And that's one thing I love about it. Yeah, I just want to make cartoons, and I just want to watch more cool cartoons and facilitate whatever it takes to make that happen, and as best the way I can, trying to shoot for that.
Imagine if you had to make this 3D. So we all had to wear like 3D glasses to watch it.
No, dude.
God.
No. If somebody wants to try,
You could go like old school 3D with like the blue and the red.
Yeah, just really lean into the gimmickry of it. Yeah,
it's like, these don't do anything. It's just blue and red. It's like, it's a beautiful filter.
That would be awesome.
It's so much more colorful now.
So it's like, why isn't the 3D working?
No, you need the sepia tone glasses.
Do you have any goals for furthering the story through the arts of animation, or are you primarily focusing your energy back to the webcomic after this?
Yes. And yes.
Oh, honey, your hands are going to be tied.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop sleeping from now on, I think. No, we are definitely planning on moving forward with animation things. We weren't sure what kind of reception the pilot would get. We were kind of resigned to, well, it may very well just get a couple 100,000 views overall, and it kind of just go quiet after that, and we'll just kind of have to resume, normal life and know that we did the best we could. And at least we have this, like, solid piece of animation that we can all be proud of. But the response has been much bigger than that. And so we're looking for avenues to continue working on this and to make more episodes and to make it. We would love to make a full series of it. That's really our goal.
And the idea is that sustains the comic as well. It's not an opposite.
Is that why it's called a pilot? Is because you guys want to see
Yes, we had a big debate. In fact, I had to convince everybody that we call it a pilot. And I had to, because Spike and Fable were not on board with that. We were calling it a short.
Oh, I was on board. What do you mean?
You told me no. I literally said I think we should call it a pilot, and you were like, no. And you did that to me a couple times. Yeah, I had to come in with like my speech prepared and convince you guys that pilot is what we call it.
I don't remember disagreeing with you.
Oh, you did.
All.
You did. Yeah. And I was kind of surprised because I thought you might understand why I would want to do that. But there's a psychological factor to doing that, both for us and for the people we show it to. And when we put it out there and, what eyes land on it and go, oh, well, they actually intend to make more. How is that going to happen? Exactly. That is the question. And that's what we are trying to solve right now.
Correct. So you were correct. It's like sometimes, like, as a person in the industry, we can get our heads kind of like stuck in this idea of terminology.
Well, we'd been calling it a short film for so long, but we knew when we were making it, that's really not what it is. It doesn't act like a short film, really. It has some elements of that, but it doesn't wrap itself up very neatly. It's not that self-contained. It's self-contained in that you can watch it without having read the comic and get what the story is the basic premises and everything, but you can't really call it fodder for film festival stuff or something because it's so open-ended in that way that, you would see it that a pilot episode would be. So
if anybody wants to watch this, you're like, hey, they didn't fix the problems, and then it's like, no, they definitely did not.
Yes, because it is not a short film. It doesn't behave like one. And so, I think we were just being a little sheepish about we were trying to be humble and say, oh, well, this is just all we're going to do. It's all, no one's going to be interested in more. That was my mentality even going into this because I didn't really think anyone would be that interested. But now I feel like the one thing I've learned over the course of this production is I couldn't sit around and just wish that someone would come along and be like, hey, I like your webcomic, we should make animation out of it. I had to go and get that. And you just got to put it out into the universe what you want to do and stop being embarrassed and shy about it and worry about, you can still be humble and modest. You don't have to be, at the core of it, but you don't have to be humble and modest about what you really fully intend to do because then you're just keeping it a secret. No one's going to look at you and go, I think what you really want is this, and so I'm going to give that to you. Like, you really gotta be the assertive party and your own advocate. And so I decided at the end of, as we were wrapping things up, I was like, I was going to make this pitch to Fable and Spike and be like, listen, I think we call it a pilot because like we did want to make more, right? We know it might not get much of a reception, and maybe it'll just be, that'll be all there is. There's just a pilot.
Yeah.
That happens to a lot of shows that are proposed, and the pilot gets made and that's it.
I remember when you were talking about, we need to call it a pilot. I just remember smiling really broadly because I was like,
oh, because I thought for sure you were still in disagreement with me when I.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was happy. I was like happy that you asserted yourself and that you were like, I want to say that this is a pilot. I want to put it front and center. I want people to know we intend to do more, to just like be front and center about that. And I was just like so happy to hear you talk like that, because I know that as a creator also, it's like the desire to like, put your head down and like not imagine like anything bigger just because you're afraid of what will happen if you put that wish out into the universe, like you're gonna get made fun of or something, or it'll definitely not happen, but to just state proudly out there, this is what I want.
Yes, it does admittedly put us in the hot seat a bit, because
it does.
People are already messaging us going, when's the next episode? When next episode? It's like one of the comments I screenshotted it and posted on the server because I just thought it was funny. It was like, just cut to the chase. When next episode? I'm like,
I love that. And like the face that went with it was perfect too. It was just like, it's like there's a number of really funny comments that people lit where I just will like screenshot and be like, I'm keeping this one.
Rule number one is don't read the comments, but we all do read the comments.
I love reading the comments. I'm a masochist. What can I say? It goes with the territory of being an animator.
Yeah. Revealing our weakness. We do read the comments. You can't, I think everybody does, even when they say
get tired of it eventually. I do. And I'm already eager to get on to the next thing. Like I finally have some brain juice starting to burble back up after 3 years of effort.
We exhausted ourselves, yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm right now, this entire time I've actually been massaging my hands because they are all the typing I've been doing is just like, it's a lot.
Stretch.
I'm stretching so much. I have gone through so many joints. You have no idea. It's, by the way, for anybody who asks, it does not inspire your creativity at all. I just use it so I can stretch without my entire body clenching up. It is my medicine.
It's pain relief. Yeah.
It's pain relief.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still don't know quite what's in store yet. We will just, like, if we get to make a series, that's ideal. That's, that'd be amazing and what we really do want to do. But we don't know if that's in the cards. We will just conform what we are able to move forward with to the resources we can gather. So if we make a full series, okay. If we make a few like 5-minute shorts following this, okay. Because that's all we can fund, it's like.
But that would be awesome. Like I'm really eager to try just doing something short and not doesn't have to chase.
We're just kind of determined we're moving forward one way or the other. So
Oh, another. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you. Sorry, you said it. And I'm just like automatically start singing it.
It's a good song to listen to while you're working, and
heck yeah,
motivation.
I can't. I always associate that song with the Rugrats movie.
Oh,
I never saw it. Thank goodness.
Oh my god, that's a weird movie.
Yeah,
I was watching that, and I was just like, something about this makes me so uncomfortable. I think it was the sequence with the babies in the baby room, and they all have like deep, upsettingly deep.
Where's the freaking baby room?
The baby room at the beginning where they're singing about like their poopy diapers and stuff. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No, I do. No. I was referencing Akira, and I think it was too vague. It just came to my mind immediately.
It's so funny. Well, how can our listeners show their support for you and your team behind Lackadaisy?
I mean, honestly, indie projects like this really live or die by word of mouth. So, if you just watch it and then share the link or say something about it or put a like on it or a comment, that like honestly does help the YouTube algorithm go, oh, people like this. So
people think
it shares it with more people.
But one person it's sharing with 3 people means that if they share it with 3 people and they share it with 3 people, it gets bigger. And if you are in Discord servers with friends and you think that there's some people that might like it there, then, link it to them. Because even if it gets recommended to them on YouTube, that doesn't mean they'll click, because YouTube recommends you a lot of things. And they might go 27 minutes. I don't know about that. But if your friend says, hey, you might like this, watch it, you're probably going to believe your friend more so than YouTube's robot. So yeah, friends of yours who you're like, I think they like cars and cats, and maybe they like guns, and maybe they like the 1920s stuff, or maybe they're just really into furries. I can't imagine your audience would be into that.
No.
It just
What?
see if they might want to give it a watch and
Furries.
react.
Oh.
I feel like you'll get a kick out of this. I actually showed the short to my club at work, and they were like, "Oh, it's cats with guns. I like this."
Wait, have you seen my pitch?
There we
My
have
pitch,
the pitch contains that exact joke.
Well,
It's
these,
like,
it's
super
like-
excited
so it's
11th
like
graders
picture.
just like, "Ooh."
A cat standing upright in a suit with a gun. And
I
that's
know for a fact at
Lackadaisy.
least 3 of them are furry, so they took to it immediately.
That's like your pitch. That's literally what you say to the people that are like, it's cats with guns.
Yeah.
And that's it.
In fancy little suits.
Isn't that a gorilla song?
Kids with guns.
Kids with
I know, it was a joke.
Oh.
I say we remix it to cats with guns, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me get those guys up on the line. I'm sure I can find a way to get in touch.
But yeah, that's our story. So
Well, I think as soon as you log off from this podcast, you should go to bed.
Oh,
that would be
fine.
nice, but I've got
I got
lots
stuff
of
to
work
do.
to do.
Yeah.
Oh man!
I have to answer DMs. Like I had to put my notifs on my phone on
Jeez.
silent because I am flooded with stuff. So
Yeah, we've been
and people said after the short was done, they're like, "Oh, now you can finally rest." I was like, "It's just the beginning."
No.
Yeah,
What a good
And
joke.
no
Yeah.
days off. No days off
2 days off.
in a long, long time.
No,
But
You'll get there.
we're liking what we're
Hopefully.
doing. It's just kind of like a health concern at a certain point where you're like,
Yeah.
if I don't, I will be injuring myself. So
yeah, I've been talking with the team, like doing a postmortem on our pipeline and process and going like, okay, what do we need to do to make this sustainable? The sustainability is important. And we talk about adding more support staff and, seeing what more tech we can invest in and what kind of pay raises we could give to people so that they can just work on this and not worry about juggling a bunch of other stuff, which creates a lot of stress. And like, it basically comes down to money. Like with more funding, we are able to make more. We already have the team, we have the place, we have like so much legwork already done, and we know exactly how to improve on what we have to make it like efficient and faster and streamlined. And what's more, better for our crew, like better working conditions, better pay. And we want to provide that because we asked a lot of people over the last 3 years to give us everything they got. And I didn't even necessarily demand that of them. They just believed in it.
They
strong
did it.
enough
they
that
believed in it
wanted to
and
do
gave that, and we are
Yeah.
eternally grateful
But
for that.
I
But-
don't want to then take that dedication, and turn it into, well, now this is how we operate.
You can't
forever.
take that dedication and then exploit it. You have to
No.
give them what they are owed
Yeah.
for their skills and the time they spend.
Yeah.
And so we don't
Yeah.
want to be another one of those problem areas in the creative industries that
Mhm.
just treat artists like disposable. You use them up, you throw them out, and someone else comes in and replaces them. And
Kudos.
Like a scrungy stray cat that, nobody.
Or a chicken.
nobody's
we
gonna
want to
recycle.
cherish our scrunkly alley cats.
Scrunklies,
We
yes.
yes.
Give them the good wet food,
Yeah.
Good wet food, warm blanket, spay,
Fancy
neuter,
feast.
keep indoors. Don't let eat wild
Get them
birds, that kind of thing.
vaccinated.
Get vaccinated. Cat tree. What were we
Yeah.
talking about?
I don't know. Artists, I think.
Your animation team.
Sparrow, do you want to take us out?
Oh, sure thing. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on to this interview. I know you have a lot on your plate. I hope this was at least, while it is still work, a fun bit of work.
It was.
I know I had
Yeah. I'm just like, oh, sweet, a furry podcast because
Have you guys not been interviewed by Furry Podcast yet?
Not really.
Sort of.
Have we?
We're the
because
first
like,
one.
I did the first
Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's not like I haven't been involved in
We've
like,
been
the community
getting,
for years, but
like
yeah.
animation magazines and
Mhm.
like Toon Boom and things like that want to interview us, but yeah, really haven't had a lot of like outreach from furry podcasts.
Yeah, hey guys, have you heard of Lackadaisy Cats? For
Yeah.
the community?
Yeah.
This little thing.
We're more of like an art based, like we initially started off as fur media and now we're straight from the muzzle. And so we've always had like this art background
Mhm.
to ourselves. And so when it comes to like interviewing animators or artists, we really, really get excited because it's something that's in our wheelhouse
Mhm.
of interviewing.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that's
that's what
very
I
cool.
think of when I think of the furry community. It's
Yeah.
a bunch of folks who are just making things.
A
and enjoying art.
self-made fandom of
Yeah.
stuff that people have made themselves, and that's really what I love
Yeah.
about it. It's like you can go
It's
to
fun.
a comic convention like Comic-Con or WonderCon or any of the big ones, and it's really become so much more about the IP, the big IPs and the movie stars who show up. And you just kind of feel lost in all of that and devalued. And then you go to a furry con and it's like, it's all about the creators supporting the other creators and the people coming and wanting to support the creators because they make the stuff that makes up the fandom. So it's just so much more homegrown and like just wholesome in that way and supportive of artists and independent creators. And yeah, it's just such a different environment. So I really my hats off to furries because Lackadaisy really would not have gotten probably anywhere. Like my Patreon supporters, probably a lot of furries, have been just like super patient with us throughout the course of production. We tried to share as much of what we were doing with them as possible behind the scenes and, make it worth their while. But yeah, I really owe a lot to the furry community for making this possible. So
Thank you. Thank you guys. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Also, you should interview the Fox and Space guy.
Interview the Fox and Space guy. Oh, if there's one thing I regret, it's that we came out not that long after he released a 40-minute cartoon, done over the course of 7 years with a very tiny crew. It was largely by himself. And then we came out and all conversation about that just sort of evaporated. And I was like, no, I love that guy's work. You got to totally check out Fox and Space, especially if you like retro cartoons. Man, his stuff is retro. Very retro stuff.
Yeah, it really just deserves more views than it currently has.
Yeah,
and more love and more kudos to someone who just pulled off their own idea almost by themselves. I mean, they certainly had, voice actor help and probably sound design
reach out to them.
But it's really incredible. It's really incredible. But we know how hard it is to make animation. And we had a crew of 170 people and a budget. And this guy, I don't think, had anything near that. And he still managed to make something very cool.
Patreon. That's what he had. That was it.
So yeah.
It's just if you like what we did, absolutely, I always advise people, if you like what we did, I want support, of course, but also, did you know that your $2 goes a long way on Patreon for any given artist? That could be the difference between a grocery.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't give more. And it's like, no, listen, the $1 and $2 stuff is the backbone of it. Really, it's so much better to have, $21 supporters than $120 supporters. Because if that $20 supporter has something happen and they have to go away, and they have to they have to rework their budget and they can't support you anymore, that hurts. But if it's just a dollar, it's okay, I can keep going. It's that small support really, really helps, and it adds up, and it really keeps a lot of independent artists afloat. So yeah. Anyway, we're kind of trailing off into
No, you're totally fine. No, you're totally fine.
If you need to edit any of this out, by all means, no feelings hurt if you guys want to edit this down. So
well, we'll be sure to put y'all's Patreon in our description also. Are there any other links you want in there?
Lackadaisy.com, ironcircus.com, fablepaint.com.
Yeah, I have a live parrot cam of my aviary. It's down.
Yeah.
It might be down by the time your viewers watch it because I need to clean it up a little bit. There was a lot of rain in California recently, but it will be coming back up. And so I have a live webcam of them where you can just watch my parrots doing their parrot things. And I'll be eventually doing streams of my own work as well through the same space. So.
Right.
Oh, the coop cam's offline. Bummer.
Yeah, it's offline right now. It will be back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can put the URLs to those in the chat if that's useful to you.
Sure.
Okay.
And our fans here, if you guys ever have questions regarding animation or you want us to find animators to bring onto our show, you know where to reach us, which is at talktothemuzzle@gmail.com, or you can tweet us @FromTheMuzzle or find us on Telegram and chat with us in our little group chat. I think that's it, really. Anything else?
No.
Sparrow?
I think we're good to go.
Alrighty. Well, special thanks. Thank you so much for coming out. I know you guys have been really busy, and I'm just over the moon grateful that you guys could find time to come on so we can interview you all.
Yeah, it was a nice break to just come and chat with some cool people. So
yay, thank you. I'm cool. I'm just kidding. I know I'm cool. Well, thanks for everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys on our next episode.
All right.
Bye, guys.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.